I'm Diane Macedo. Today on ABC News Live. First, testimony is underway in the criminal hush money trial against former President Trump. Earlier, the judge fined Trump a total of $9,000 for violating the limited gag order against him in the case. Banker Gary Farrow is now back on the stand after already testifying that he helped Michael Cohen set up the shell company that Cohen used to secretly pay Stormy Daniels $130,000 ahead of the election. ABC News investigative reporter Olivia Rubin joins me now from outside the courthouse, along with ABC News executive editorial producer John Santucci and legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer. Olivia, before testimony resumed, the judge issued this ruling on some of the gag order violations, not even all of them. But not only did he issue these fines, he also warned that Trump could be jailed if he continues to violate the gag order. What's the latest on that?
Strong words this morning from Judge Juan Marchand, who ruled on that first set of alleged gag order violations. Remember, Diane, prosecutors first went to the judge with the 10 violations. So that is the ruling we got today, saying they met their burden on 9 of them, a $1,000 fine for each of them, totaling that $9,000 fine that Donald Trump must pay. And he also has until 2:15 p.m. to remove the posts. And then later he will hear arguments on the next set of violations that prosecutors have alleged. But like you said, a really strong warning from him, saying that the court will not tolerate continued willful violations of the order and that he could impose some sort of jail punishment. And remember, this is something that we already have heard that Secret Service has been preparing for, the possibility that Donald Trump could find himself in some sort of jail cell because of his violations of the gag order. So what once was just preparations, just speculation that maybe it could happen because prosecutors had not yet asked for that, now appears to be a real possibility because the judge has now put that on the table, Diane.
John, what would that look like if the former president gets put in jail?
Insane. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of images already that have been beyond belief. Donald Trump in a courtroom last year being arraigned, Donald Trump in a courtroom for all the proceedings, Donald Trump sitting for a trial. Donald Trump in a jail cell, I don't think anybody could believe that if it actually does happen, but it's very real and very possible. And I do think one of the things we have to recognize here, and Olivia pointed this out, Donald Trump has to comply now. And I think that repeatedly over the last couple of weeks, one of the things Donald Trump is learning quite literally the hard way is that he's not in control here. He cannot make his own schedule. We now know the judge is saying he can go to his son's high school graduation, so at least there's a win there. But again, the fact that he needs permission to do that. And the reality is that Donald Trump for years has been told by advisors since he became a political candidate in 2015, rein it in, don't post this, don't do that. He never listened to anybody because, quite frankly, there were no consequences. And now there are $9,000 worth of consequences. And let's be clear, we may not be done there. We have to wait and see what Thursday's hearing shakes out of the wash. We know there's at least 4 more violations on the table. If he's there, we break another 4,000. And then the question is, as we all know, can he stay on his best behavior and for how long?
Olivia, I also want to talk about who else is in court today. We have Trump's top campaign advisor, Susan Wiles, in the courtroom. And for the first time, a member of his family, his son, Eric Trump, is there by his side. Talk to us about the significance there.
We have seen sort of a rotating cast of advisors to Donald Trump coming into the courtroom every single day with him. But what we have not seen until today, Diane, was a member of his family. None of his children, his wife has not been in there until today. Eric Trump is in the courtroom with his father, and he is seated next to Susie Wiles, who is one of Trump's top campaign advisors, helping lead his campaign this election cycle. So it's a significant show in the courtroom today. And just to sort of paint a picture for you, Susie and Eric are seated next to each other, essentially in the first row behind Donald Trump. And there was a moment when they came into the courtroom and Trump went into the well, took his position at the defense table, and then sort of pivoted and turned back and was chatting with Eric and chatting with Susie, a little pre-court conversation, and almost was pressed up on the barrier that separates them, which is not something that we see Donald Trump do. We have seen advisors such as Jason Miller with him or Boris Epstein, a longtime legal advisor to Donald Trump, but he wasn't really chatting with them in the courtroom. So a significant show today, and telling Diane that it took until week 3 of this criminal trial to see one of Donald Trump's family members there to support him.
Brian, right now, Gary Farrow's on the stand. He's talking about how he helped Michael Cohen form the shell company that Cohen then used to pay Stormy Daniels. He hasn't been cross-examined yet, so we're waiting to see what the defense will focus on. But based on the cross-examination so far in the first week of testimony, has anything stuck out to you that you thought that could raise reasonable doubt?
Yes and no. When I think of reasonable doubt, I think of more to the specific elements of the crime, intent to defraud and cover up separate crimes. But I think as an overarching concept of reasonable doubt, I do think they have raised this idea of this is business as usual. This is, and I kind of laughed at it in the opening statements, this is how democracy works. They brought up that Arnold Schwarzenegger had a similar relationship with the Inquirer. They buy stories and they keep them from going out, that they protect their kind of clients, so to speak, from this information coming out. And so to that degree, it might not go to the elements of the crime, but I think it could go to a jury saying, why are we picking on this one specific individual when everyone does it? I'm sure at some point we're going to hear about Bill Clinton and how stories for him were bought and covered up as well. And so that, I think, drives home the idea of selective prosecution, but that doesn't necessarily go to any elements of the crime, but could create at least one or two jurors saying, you know what, I'm not going to let this happen, and have a holdout, which is exactly what I think Donald Trump wants, and it'll be a major win for him.
So, Olivia, what are you watching for next in court?
We're going to watch to see how this former banker of Michael Cohen, Gary Farrow, continues to testify. Right now, this morning, he has been continuing to walk through the jury this sort of frantic effort from Michael Cohen in the days before the 2016 election, trying to create this shell company. And again, what has been so critical about a lot of Gary Farrow's testimony is that he is mentioning how the sort of efforts to conceal it. He talked about how Michael Cohen said that this was a real estate account, that that's what it was going to be used for. Of course, he said it had nothing to do with real estate, and that had he known it had to do with some sort of political funds, that would have been extra that the bank would have wanted to take a look at, and extra flags that would have been raised on the account. So that testimony sort of spoke to one of the critical claims from prosecutors, which is that they were trying to hide this, not just in the bank records and the way that Michael Cohen was paid back, but now apparently in the way that Michael Cohen set up the accounts in the first place. So it's speaking to that sort of effort to conceal, and he is continuing to walk through the jury and lay out irrefutable evidence. Here's Michael Cohen's signature on the account. Here's Michael Cohen's email to me asking to set up the account. It's really just cut and dry. Michael Cohen set up the accounts. Here they were.
All right, Olivia Rubin, John Santucci, Brian Buckmeyer, thank you. And we will be following this trial all day long and bring you updates right here on ABC News Live.